am not afraid to toot my own horn.
Okay.
And not in a braggadocious way, not in a boastful way, but you have to be able to say nice things about yourself. You have to be able to talk yourself up. So I do that. That's the sort of elevate piece. The empowering piece is to do things I've never done. So I challenge myself.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Life Empowered Living Room. I am here with a very, and I know I'm partial, and you guys probably think I say this about everybody, but this time it's different for real. A very special guest, Noleta Franz. Noleta, thank you for joining me on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
As you can tell, I'm so excited. I didn't even do the normal pitch, to reach, empower, motivate others to access and utilize their God-given, their inherent talents and skills, building better families, companies, and communities worldwide. That is the mission of Life Empowered Consulting Services. But enough of that. Noleta's with us today. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I have been excited ever since we talked about getting together and having me on. So I am ready to get into it.
Let's do it. And I really wanted to do this super introduction of you, but then I thought about you, right? And I'm like, yeah, let's do this a little different.
Okay.
And so when I think of you as the entrepreneur. I think of you as the board member. I think of you as the assistant director. I think of you as the bonus mother. Yeah. I think of you as the board member. But how do you define you?
I am first a woman of faith. And I think that is something that really anchors me. So when I start there, I'm a wife. I'm a proud wife. I am a proud daughter, an aunt, a niece, a friend, bonus mom, all the things. But I want to say, first and foremost, just a kind soul and try to give the love of the Lord to everybody I encounter, because I think that's important.
See why she's my favorite. Okay, so anyway, I want to start with what I call the fast, or the quick 7, which are just really kind of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
But can you give me a fun fact about you? What's something that people don't know?
I don't think a lot of people know that I grew up in Mississippi.
Let's talk about that.
So I feel I am a Southern Belle at heart, 100%. And I grew up in a very small town, Bay Springs, Mississippi. We had animals, and I lived a very, country girl life. And I think to look at the fabulousness that is me today, people might not think that. But
How do you think that made you?
I certainly know it taught me what hard work was, for sure. It taught me that everyone has something to contribute. You pitch in, you roll up your sleeves. It taught me how to be hospitable to people. I think there's something about the South, right? Nothing against Wisconsin or the Midwest, but there is a Southern hospitality that you inherently get when you grow up in that type of environment. Now, don't get me wrong. It wasn't all peaches and cream, right? It's still the South, the deep South at that. But I definitely feel like there are some fundamentals that I learned at a very young age that has really stuck with me to today.
Now, I mentioned that you are a assistant director for legal processes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When I'm thinking about your background, Mississippi, this hospitality, how did you go from this belle to I'm going to put you in jail?
I feel like growing up, law and legal issues and solving problems was something that I've always been interested in. So I think if you ask anyone who knew me as a child, they probably say 2 things. They probably say she is and has always been extremely inquisitive. And she talked too much. And so I really felt like, if these are some qualities that people could have and be successful, like how do you parlay those things into something? But I look at law and like legal issues as like putting a puzzle together, like taking the pieces, figuring it out, being like using sort of your superpower of being this detective almost. And so it's always been something that has been like inherently natural to me. So you said, how did I take that and then go from the South and come up here? So when we moved to Milwaukee when I was in high school, I will say it was very much a culture shock. So I'm like, all right, here you come from the South and everybody knows everybody, super small town, to this big city where you don't know anyone. But what I had was grit. What I had was a determination to carve out a space for myself. And I think being nice and kind and friendly opened a lot of doors for me. It allowed people to see me, but also want to come and partner alongside me and say, hey, I know this person. You should meet this person. Or, hey, you should think about doing this. And so I think the Southern Belle in me really was this kind of charismatic thing that drew people to me, but also helped me meet great people along the way that really helped push me to get to that next level. And here I am today.
And so when I think of kind of the role that you're in today and listening to that story, how do you teach that?
I think that it has to be inherently who you are. I think sometimes people tend to not want to operate in their gift because they're looking and watching someone else. And so my grandmother used to say something, used to say, just be yourself. No one can beat you at being you. And I think instead of saying, like, how do you teach people, I think you need to help people cultivate their gift because your gift will certainly make room for you. So what are the things that you're good at? Like, what do you enjoy? What do you love? What makes you tick? And if you lean into those things, the doors will open and you will have more opportunity and there will be more spaces available for you to operate in those areas that that truly give you energy.
Operating, absolutely. And you know what? That's so true. One of the things that I often say is that we have to understand who we are and what our gifts are in order to go to that next level. But just as you said, when people are observing others, sometimes they don't even bother trying to figure out what their gifting is, right? Because they're like, oh, I like that. I want that. I want to be like that. I want to do that. And so just the transition from the South to here, culture shock, how did you figure out how to anchor you and not assimilate to what you saw here?
That was hard. Let me just say that. I think for me, even though I was able to make friends relatively easy and engage with people, I've always been pretty charismatic or have really good energy is what someone told me once. But I also just have always been very grounded in myself. Like I've never been someone who had a big head or who needed to be a follower. I've always kind of been strong in my own sense of self. And that doesn't mean that there wasn't times that it was hard to kind of be yourself. But I felt, for me, if I abandon who I know myself to be, like if I abandon my morals or if I abandon what I've cultivated and what feels real and genuine to me, then where does that leave me? Like this is who I am. I was made this way. I am inherently better because I am this way. So while I saw a lot, it never made me want to be those things.
Okay.
I always wanted to just stay true to myself. And I think you have to have that really deep inside of you.
Yeah.
And hold on to it.
Yeah.
In order to just not follow the masses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have to be, fully transparent. I envy that so much because I feel like I didn't have that. And so every day I'm anchoring and I'm fighting to anchor myself in, one, who God has called me to be, and two, who I am.
Yeah.
But this is a muscle that I've developed later in life, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have it at that age. And so it's admirable. So kudos to you for having it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, when I think back, if I'm being really honest, if I think back to things that I could have gotten into, right? Situations I could have been a part of that would have sent me off course, and I didn't. I can think back and be really proud of myself, and that's not to say I was perfect, right? You know, you live, you learn, but I certainly really tried to make it my business and a priority to not put myself in situations that were going to be hard for me to get out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so thinking about the strength and the power and the presence that you have today as the wife, the mother, the woman of faith, the amazing soul that you are, what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, honey, listen here. This is a question that has come up in conversations that I've had. And do you know what I really would tell myself, my younger self? Be bold. I I grew up, you know, a lot of what I just explained to you, like, you know, I wanted to anchor myself, and so I shied away from things. And I don't think I was bold enough in the things that I needed to be bold in. I was safe. You play it safe, you know, first generation college graduate, first person, like you just want to get out and achieve the things. And so you play it safe so that you can continue to be successful. But sometimes I wonder if I thought a little too small.
Yes. Yes.
Think about if I would have been a little bit bolder,
Yes.
where I could be today.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm not proud of myself and proud of my success. So I tell that young lady, be bold, do it, do it all.
Okay, so now let me ask you another question. And I literally was driving here thinking about this because I know that your grandmother had a pivotal role, right, in your life in raising you. But now what I want you to do is think 3 generations forward. So not your children, not your children's children, but your children's children. What's something that your grandmother taught you that you'd want them to know?
I would want them to know that they should treat everyone with respect. And that it's really those fundamentals that I think if we look at the times that we're living in now, things have kind of fallen by the wayside, right? We see a lot of stuff on social media. We see interactions. We see how people are being treated. And my grandmother was really big on you just treat people right. You speak. You say thank you and please. You have manners. You have morals, right? You don't do bad things to one another. Like you just treat your family right. Be kind. And so I would want the next generation after me, or 3 generations after me, the legacy of this family is to be, we should be known for our character. We should be known for our ability to be kind. We should be thoughtful and caring and loving towards it. And the fundamentals, because I think if you have those, it will take you further than any, you know, not further. Wealth is great too. We want to have wealth. But I think you have to know how to treat people in this day and age for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's good. And as you can tell, we just jumped in with both feet. So I jumped on, I'm like, tell me everything. But, you know, let's shift to your career.
Yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to take that skill set and be specifically in legal?
I did. Okay. I did. And interestingly enough, so like I said, being first generation college graduate, when I started, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee to get my bachelor's degree, and I was literally working full time and going to school. Now, I know, like, a lot of people do that, so I'm not saying it like it was just this amazing thing, but I was working at a bank at the time. I don't give myself enough credit, too. That's another thing, but we're working on that. And I was thinking to myself, like, I just need to finish. And once I finish, the next job out of college, I want to be in the law field. I end up befriending someone who says to me, and I'm probably 2 years into undergrad, and she's like, hey, I work at this law firm, and they're looking for help in like the mailroom, like this catch-all type of position. And she said, you've always expressed how you wanted to be in the law field. Do you want me to give them your resume? And I'm like, yes,
Say less.
absolutely. And shortly thereafter, I was able, I interviewed for the role, got in. I was basically like a administrative assistant / office manager / coffee getter / mail person, all the things. But being there in that environment and being around those leaders, those attorneys, really solidified my drive to say, like, no, this is really an area that gives me energy. Now, I will say, so I did that all throughout undergrad, and then I graduated. And so my thought was, okay, what's next? Like, I got this thing. I want to continue my skill set, but I'd probably stay here forever because it's just so comfortable. I need to push myself. I need to see what else I can do. And I went out and decided to do something completely different.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't last long, but I went out and decided to do something completely different. And I just mentioned that to say I came back to law. So even thinking that you want to have something different or that you should be doing something different, because we all can feel a little stagnant at times, I ended up going back to law. So it has always been just a part of my life.
So although you've always been in that industry, talk about some of the big transitions that you've had to navigate through.
Well, full transparency, when I said that role that I took, because I'm like, I'm going to do something different, it didn't work out. And I was so excited because it was the most money I'd ever made at the time, right? And within 6 months, I'm in the office of the director of that company, and they're like, yeah, Noleta, this just isn't working out.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. I was devastated because I am a serial overachiever. Like, I have the majority of anything I've ever touched, I've been good at it.
Right.
And up until that point, I hadn't known what true, not rejection isn't the word, but true just, we don't want you. Like, just, or this isn't working. And I hadn't really experienced that before. So that transition of picking myself up, dusting myself off, finding my worth again. Now, meaning I had just graduated with my degree.
Right.
So here I am, a degreed woman.
Right.
They say, go to school, they say. Get your degree, they say. You'll open doors, they say. And the first role after getting my degree, I failed.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I love that story. I have to tell you, I was 6 weeks out from my master's degree. The company paid for it and walked me right out the building. It's been nice, Celeste. You've been an amazing employee. It's been great working with you. And you know what? Because we like you so much, we won't even have the security escort you out the building.
We trust
go
you.
ahead and get your things. We trust
We
you.
trust you.
Get your things and just go ahead and leave. So, yeah.
There's very little that rattles your faith in yourself, but that's one of them.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of things that can take you to a dark sort of place, but that's one of them.
Yeah. And for me, and it happened for you, it sounds like at a younger point, right, in your time, in your life. And I was a little bit more established. And by then, I had accumulated so much stuff, right? You have the house, you have the car, you have the husband, you have the kids, you've done all of these things. You are the quote unquote power couple, in the community now. One of us done lost our power.
You said the jobless one.
Right. One of us.
A part of the jobless power.
Yeah. So, and I had to go through a process of redefining myself all over again in the midst of all of that. And so when you think about, like, that happened, but when you think about all of the career choices that you've made, are there any that you would do differently now?
Yeah, so I said something earlier about when you asked about the younger self, and I said be bold, like just do it, almost like Nike. I think those experiences rattle you, and so you become a little bit more reserved, a little bit more strategic in thinking super long term. And so I think what I would do different is not try to go after just the safe stuff. I would probably try to see what life would be like out of state. You know what I mean? Like I would have tried to advance myself in ways that I didn't try out of fear of failure.
Yeah. I love that so much. And so when you think about that today, where you would have tried something different, you still have this whole life ahead of you, right? Is that how Beautifully Blended got started? Is that how the board worked? Tell me how all of these other things.
So Beautifully Blended got started really as a way to express myself, interestingly enough, like as my own outlet. So as you mentioned earlier, you're a wife, you're a bonus mom. And when I met my husband, I knew that he had a daughter. We talked a lot about like family and building. And here comes this like serial overachiever again. So anything that I've done, I've just wanted to be good at it, right? But also not having any biological children of my own. I'm like, I got to get this right. Like I can't be raising this child and not getting it right. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to figure out what this blended family structure should look like. And it was hard, and some days were like frustrating and all the things. And I stopped and I said, I can't be the only one dealing with it. Like I can't be the only one that are having these thoughts. And so I'm like, what if I created this safe space for other families who are blended, offered coaching and counseling to help them strengthen their family structure too? And okay, Noleta, if you're going to do that, what does that look like? All right. Well, I think you need to have some keys to success. Like, what are your pillars? What are you basing this on? And so I came up with the 7 keys to a successfully blended family. And from there, Beautifully Blended was born. And having these conversations with other blended families, and blended could look different. It doesn't have to be your traditional stepmom, stepdad. I've had conversations with people who are blended because they have adopted children. Have conversations with people who are blended because the husband might have kids and the wife doesn't, or vice versa. And I think every time I have these conversations or I coach a couple, they learn from me, but I learn from them. And it's very therapeutic, but it's also, you want families to be successful. I want families to be successful. And at the end of the day, if we can be catalysts for each other.
Yep, that's it.
To be strong and to be, to have a little bit more confidence in how you move on when some of these challenges come up in your blended family, then I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
You're doing that. That is so important. One of the main premises of this podcast is life empowered living. It's not just about our work life. I personally believe you can't have an amazing work life and a horrible out of work life. It it will bleed one way or the other.
One way
right?
or the other, you're
and
right.
so when we're thinking about, all of the tenets that you have up in there, all of the balls that we're juggling here or you're juggling here, how are you, what's your secret? What's your key to success? Are there 7?
I think the key that my success is built on is I have a really great partner. So shout out to my awesome and amazing husband. Love you, babe. Joseph Franz. But that keeps me, he keeps me from really tipping the scale one way or another. That's a bit of balance that I have. If I'm just going a little bit too far off the rails, he's gonna be like, okay, babe, pull it back. Pull it back. If it looks like I am obsessing over something, or if I'm feeling like, oh, it's not quite good enough, I know that I can always count on him to listen and kind of bring me back in. And so I think you need that. You also need to be able to talk to yourself sometimes. We don't always listen to the thing. We don't listen to our body. We don't listen to how we're feeling. We can sometimes push those things away. So I've learned to be a little bit more in tune with, you know what? No, it's not that. It's this. Don't second guess yourself.
Yep,
you got
trust you.
this.
Yep.
So being my own cheerleader as well. So I heard someone say recently, it's like you can't say work-life balance because it's, that was you.
I was like,
That was you.
no such thing.
Yeah. And so, but I really took that to heart because what is the priority at the time? Handle what you need to handle when you need to handle it, and everything else will take care of itself. You don't have to do it all. You just have to do what you need to do when you need to do it.
Yep. It's so true. Which takes me to my next question. I mean, that sounds like wisdom, I have to tell you. But where do you go for mentorship, for coaching? You're coaching. Where do you go?
So I have some amazing women in my life, and I am fortunate to be sitting next to one of them right now. But I have women that I just respect, and they pour into me, and a different woman for a different thing too.
Right.
I would suggest, who's ever listening to this podcast, diversify. Okay, diversify your network. Get out there because you never know who can be that voice that's really going to pour into you about the thing that you're dealing with and struggling with. Or maybe it's not a struggle. Maybe you just want a different perspective. And so I have a great network of women who are, and these women aren't just like-minded like me.
Right.
Because what you really want is some folks that are going to give you diverse perspective. Because if I just had people around me who was only going to ever tell me what I wanted to hear or see things the way I see them, then I'm not growing. So I have good women around me to pour into me, to give me that wisdom, guidance, those kind of things. And then I try to vacation because that's also part of how I feel my
vacation.
Yeah, I have to check out from time to time.
And I think that's necessary and needed for all of us, even though we don't all do a good job. Some of us are away and not away. You know?
Yeah.
We leave the city, but we take all of the baggage with us everywhere we go. And so we do have to do a better job at that. And so when you're thinking about our time, this podcast, and we're chatting it up, and you're thinking about who potentially will be listening to this podcast, which is generally women, of course, and probably our age group. But really, the message that I'm hoping that you will convey can be for everybody, which is, you said it, having this great cast of women or supporting cast around you. What are some things that anybody can do to build
their network?
Yeah, their network.
So I'd say the first thing you want to do is tap into the spaces that you spend time in. So if that's your church, make sure that you're tapping into women in your church that you trust, that can mentor you and that can help you. The other space is there's professional networking organizations. You have Tempo, you have Professional Dimensions, you have I'm probably forgetting one, but those are the two that are top of mind. I know I'm a part of Tempo. And so those are great organizations that link you with women that you probably wouldn't otherwise have access
Connection.
to. And so
Access. Yes.
that is another point of connection. So you want to start in the circle that you travel in. So if that's your church or wherever. And then I think there's great women that you probably work with. And they're probably going to be more of a friend to you. But make sure that if they're a friend, they're also going to shoot you straight. Nothing's wrong with having a friend give you advice or be a mentor or be connected to, but make sure that they're just not going to tell you what you want to hear. And don't be upset when you get the feedback that you're looking for. And I think the third place you can go, so we have church, we have work, we have professional development organizations, but I also think you can lean into your family. Like I think sometimes we don't always acknowledge the institutional knowledge we have in members of our family who've been places and seen things. So don't hesitate to tap into those grandmothers or those great aunts or those cousins who could potentially, and they might not be the person you go to all the time about everything, but they have something to offer. So be mindful of that. And then I think you can also make sure that you have a connection to someone in the spiritual realm. So if you have a pastor that you can call or a bishop or something like that, because you want that sort of gut check from a spiritual perspective as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, you know, the pro in that is that we have access to all of these resources. The con is that some people go to all of the resources, and so they get 10 different pieces of advice about the same thing because now someone has socialized, right, that issue 10 times around. And so when you think about your experiences and, just communicating, establishing relationships, networking, how are you creating boundaries and healthy boundaries?
I think I'm good at it. I think I am. I think the boundaries are understanding people's capacity and your own.
Yeah.
Everyone's not meant to be on speed dial for everything. And so I am big on what do I have to give when I have to give it. I think you have to be very strategic and thoughtful in that approach.
Absolutely.
Because people have lives. And so what I like to do is if I've identified my village, my circle of people that I go to, I've also identified who I go to for what. So if it's something regarding my marriage, I have this person. If it's something regarding work, I have this person. If it's something regarding how I'm feeling, I have this person. If it's something regarding how I'm showing up and people are perceiving me, I have another person. And so being very mindful of that. And then you said something a moment ago, which is really interesting, how people socialize it. So now you're taking all 5 different perspectives and trying to put them together and determine what you should do. Well, here's the thing. If I'm asking person A about a work issue, but they've never experienced me in a work setting, how are they able to give me the advice that I need to move forward? Now I've really just wasted their time. They can give me a perspective, sure, but you always want to kind of check your source and make sure that you're getting, and if they are part of your village, why do you need to ask 10 other people? Because you're going to get the information 9 times out of 10 that you need. So be mindful of who you're asking for what. Be mindful of capacity. And be mindful of your own capacity.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I try to do
it. And that is so important in terms of who you're asking. I'm actually preparing the book, The Risk to Be Great. I'm actually doing the audio version of it now, so I'm working through that. And I just was reading through that particular section that I have in my book. There are three people, right? The person that's called to you, the person that's committed to you, and the person that's complementary to you. And the person that is called to you, that person feels like they are connected to you and they want to see you grow and they want to see you excel. And so they are really working to support you as you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Your committed person is more like your BFF, right? So where you go, they go, and that's just what it is. And then there's this complementary person that they're only around because you add value to them and they add value to you. And so you have to make sure you know the difference because if you don't, you'll expect this complementary person to add value to you like that called or that committed person to you. And then you create this undue stress and conflict because they're not showing up how you think
No, I love that.
they should.
Yeah.
And so I think the other part of that then is how do we manage our own expectations?
I think that managing your expectations is a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. I agree.
Because if I could say, and if someone's listening to this podcast, please get a hold of Celeste. If you got it figured out, I would love to hear the secret recipe.
Yeah.
But it's a lifelong journey because I think we're ever evolving and growing. And things that triggered us years ago might not trigger us now, and things that trigger us now may not have triggered us years ago. And so managing your own expectations is more about knowing you than it is any of the external things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so for me, I try to be very mindful of the things I tell myself. You can block out what people say about you. You can block out, comments on social media. You can block those things out.
Right.
But what are you telling yourself?
Yep.
Those are a lot harder to silence. And as I've grown and I guess as I get older, I just want to be kind to me.
That's so important. And so, the being kind to you should be, my opinion, should also be reflective of your strength, your authenticity, and other people should also experience that. Because when you're kind to you, you're okay with you. And as a result, you don't have to be jealous, right? Or envious of anybody else because you're secure in who you are. And so when you think about this podcast, kind of the underlying theme is to embrace, empower, and elevate. What have you done to embrace you, to empower you, and to elevate you?
Yeah. I am not afraid to toot my own horn.
Okay.
And not in a braggadocious way, not in a boastful way, but you have to be able to say nice things about yourself. You have to be able to talk yourself up. So I do that. That's the sort of elevate piece. The empowering piece is to do things I've never done. So I challenge myself to push myself, get out of my comfort zone. This year I spoke on stage. Now I do speaking, I guess, a lot, but this was for MLK Day. And so you're like, oh, that's MLK. Like, you got to bring it. And so where I might have shied away at one point in my life saying, me? Like, they want me to do this? I'm now saying, why not me? And so that is the empowering piece. That is the piece that I want to make sure that I'm constantly moving myself forward. And to embrace it, I think it's just saying, like I said, why not you? You are worth it. Yeah. You have done the things. You are worthy of this. Now, getting the recognition and all of those things, that's good too. But it wouldn't mean anything if I didn't believe it. It wouldn't rest with me if I couldn't receive it.
Right.
So
That's good. Now tell me this. I do believe that these things should be reciprocal. So how are you doing that for others?
okay. So I think that shows up in my interactions with, I am the chair of our Black women's group. It's called Vibe at my work. And so making sure to create an environment for other women that look like me, they can thrive, build a sense of community, find their tribe is really important to me. I have nieces that I pour into. I have a mentee that I pour into. I have, as you mentioned, I'm on a few different boards, and so all of those are strategically around empowering others. It's one board is Mentor Greater Milwaukee, and the Sherman Phoenix Foundation. All of these things are organizations who are trying to uplift, empower, and pour into others. And so I think it shows up in all facets of my life. I'm very active with my church as well, and so what I'm doing for others is trying to show up in spaces authentically me, but creating space for others to feel connected, feel like they have a space and a voice, and to have a sense of community.
I love that. I have this acronym that I often use, and it basically says is you have to simply care. CARE, and C is create a path. A is advocate. R is build strong relationships. And then that E is to empower. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, yes, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
That kind of checked the boxes, didn't it?
It checks the boxes. And so I just love that so much because this is what we need more of, right? This is what the community needs. The professional community, the Black community, the white community, the human community.
Yeah.
This is what we need in order to really change and improve the trajectory of this city, this community, this country that we live in. And so I get excited when I hear you talking about these things. And so
There's a saying that says, show me where you spend your time, I'll show you what you care about.
absolutely.
And so I am grateful that I spend my time giving back and pouring into and being and adding value to spaces, because at the end of the day, the legacy that I want to leave, what I want to be known for, is someone, to your point, who cares, someone who was selfless, someone who was thoughtful, someone who was kind, but above all, someone who poured what they could into others to advance people.
Absolutely. And I often say with legacy, and that actually was one of my questions, is what do you want your legacy to be? But what I often say about legacy is not just when you die. It's also when you leave the room. And sometimes it's before you get in the room because you was in the room, and people don't want to be bothered with you as a result. And so when you think about the things that you're doing and you think about your legacy at the end of your workday, at the end of a meeting, what brings you the most joy?
I know it's kind of twofold. It's in the little things. So my mentee is getting ready to go off to college. She actually leaves tomorrow. And last night we had dinner. And we were talking and chatting, and to hear her be appreciative for the things and the time we've spent and the things that we've shared, and her knowing that she can call me feels good. Getting those text messages or emails after I've spoken to a group of ladies and having someone follow up and say, hey, what you said, it really helped me, or it really blessed me. It's not necessarily the grandiose things. I appreciate the little points of connection. What gives me energy is someone saying to me, you helped me.
I love that. And I like to ask that question because what you didn't say is, I finished that project, or I saved the company $2 million, or, these grandiose things. It was, I touched a life.
Yeah.
I had an impact.
Yeah.
I helped develop a young person. And she's going off, to college to be this amazing thing. I had a hand in that.
Yeah.
And that, if we were really, really honest, that's what it's all about.
That's the sweet spot.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I think we get so busy with our life, doing all the things. Like even when I submitted my bio for this, have you ever sat and read your own bio and thought to yourself, gosh, I do a lot of stuff. I got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Who's this person?
Yeah.
And so I don't think we even, while we're in it, fully taking stock of it. And so it's when the people reach back out to us to say, you touched me, to your point, you made an impact on me. That's when it becomes, that's the fruit of the labor.
Yeah.
And I want to operate in fruit.
Come on. What's your strawberries, apples? What we doing?
all of
fruit.
All of
fruit.
Yeah.
We have a medley. I love this. Noleta, I have enjoyed this time. I have enjoyed this so much.
Yeah.
If there was anything that you wanted to leave the people, a way for them to connect with you, with the Beautifully Blended, or just, I need her to be in my circle, feel free to share that
You
information.
can certainly reach out to me. I have for Beautifully Blended, you can find me at www.beautifullyblended414.org. I think that's right. It might not be. Y'all forgive me, because now I'm thinking about it as I say it out loud. Like, nope, that's not.
It.
Yeah, I'm like, nope, that's not right.
It.
because I had to change it. So forgive me for that. But on social media platforms, so please find Beautifully Blended on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I will make sure to give Celeste the appropriate email address to attach when this comes out. But I think this is going to be, or I'm hoping this will be impactful to someone, and that they will feel led to reaching out and continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And all of my podcast listeners and viewers, we thank you for joining us again. And remember, live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.